program featuring the news and interests of the African American community. Here's your host, Sandra Bookman.
Residents on a mission to eliminate racial, academic, and cultural barriers in the South Orange Maplewood community. The South Orange Maplewood Community Coalition on Race is a nonprofit organization dedicated to sustaining a racially, culturally, and socially inclusive neighborhood. Their mission includes working to eliminate the academic achievement gap in schools, promoting the inclusive nature of the towns to potential homebuyers, and building relationships across racial and cultural barriers. Joining us today is the Community Coalition's Program Director, Audrey Rowe, and Board Member Robert Marchman. Thank you both for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
You guys have been doing this important work for more than 20 years now.
Correct.
And we've seen you mentioned in some books. I think one of the books was Why Are the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria?
Yes, the update.
As an example of how communities can work through some of the issues we're facing, really, when we're talking about cultural and racial barriers these days. What was it that made, your community say, we're going to tackle this head on and we are going to make it a focus and stay on top of it?
Right.
I mean, where did that come from?
Right. So the organization has been in existence, as you mentioned, and thank you again for the invitation, since 1996. And really our story began as a result of members of the community seeing white flight from the community. And there was a concern because one of the values of Maplewood and South Orange has always been a focus on integration, diversity, and inclusion. And there was a concern that the community was going to, frankly, unravel because of fear.
Yeah.
A group of residents, multiracial backgrounds, got together and decided that we were going to implement an intentional program to combat this fear. And that, in essence, led to the formation of the Community Coalition on Race in 1996. And we were focused on housing, education, and civic engagement. And for us, as we move forward today, the important value add is that we've reversed the trend that we saw 22 years ago. Now our community, at the time you were seeing for sale signs where people were leaving in droves. Now you see for sale signs and people are fighting to get into our community because of what we represent. So the message is that when you embrace intentionality of integration and diversity and inclusion, it can be a win-win for all who are involved.
And do you find that the work that you started doing more than 20 years ago is even more relevant today? And, even though you guys have obviously been very successful, are there still challenges so you feel like what you do is still relevant?
I think our relevance has always been valid, but given what's going on in our nation politically, there are a lot of people who are not paying attention who are suddenly looking up and seeing and appreciating the value of what we do. So we have a lot of people who are on the sidelines that are now becoming more engaged. I think we still have the challenge of people, in terms of their priorities, feeling like integration is an option rather than an imperative. And we think it should be front and center. And until people accept that and our country accepts that and treats it from that standpoint, we'll continually keep fighting the same battles over and over.
So how do you do the work that you do today? What I know that some of the things that you're involved in, when you start talking to people about people that are interested in the community, you want to show them the great things about the community. They're looking perhaps to live there. I know that you do a great deal of work in terms of having conversations about some of the issues we're dealing with. But, sometimes there are people, I think, that would say, well, wait a minute, aren't you kind of overstepping your bounds in a bit? Or is that what you think many of us need to do if we're serious about changing our communities, changing the conversation, and, actually hearing and being heard?
Well, I'll take it at a high level, and then Audrey, because she's the program director and very backbone of the organization, can provide more detail. But I'll just say this, and Audrey alluded to it. You know, we're in a very fractured society today. We need to look for solutions for everybody to understand that we will gain more by working together than being divided. And we focus on two paths. One is advocacy, the other is programming. And one of the things that we've done and enabled us to have the successes we have, and by the way, we're still a work in progress. I want to emphasize that we're not saying we're a panacea, but at least we can hold ourselves as a model. And we live in one of the most segregated states in the country, New Jersey. People need to be aware of that. So we definitely are, we see ourselves as a beacon of hope. But I will say that it's, and I say this wearing my community hat and my professional hat, that you have to talk about the issues, and that's where we distinguish ourselves, that we, front and center our community, have committed to talking about the difficult issue of race, how it impacts people, whether we're talking about implicit bias or other issues that can serve to be impediments for progress for all. And that's why we continue to focus on housing. One of the big issues we're dealing with now in the community is the issue with our schools, and continue to fight that all students, regardless of color, that they're all our children, and we want them to get an equal and high quality education. So it's a continuous work in progress, but at a high level, those are the two paths. And again, the reason why we do it is because we think there is value in those who follow what we're doing. It's not just a lot of rhetoric.
And I think the proof and the value of what you do is in the kind of community that you have helped to create and nourish in a lot of ways.
Yes, and the proof is in the fact that we've been able to remain a stably integrated community, where some of the communities around us have shifted. And I think that's from hard work, the intentionality that Robert mentioned. When there are problems related to race, you can't look away. You need to look at it head on and then come up with solutions based upon the entire community, not just one small segment of the community. We've instituted a lot of programs in the community, and our goal was to touch every aspect of community life, every aspect and every group within the community. Starting with our children, we started an integrated play group, which is the way to get kids socializing at a very early age. So seeing and working with people who don't look like them is natural. We have a preschool open house.
And we are running out of time.
I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, because I think what you guys have done and the work you do is amazing. But I want to send people to your website, twotowns.org.
Yes.
Take a look at some of the programming and perhaps reach out and find out how to replicate what you've been doing.
Please do.
Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for the opportunity. We really appreciate it.
it.
Thank you so much.